I don't care what Gordon Gekko told you in the 80s. Greed isn't good.
Get that stuff out of here. It's Southwest Bias.
Welcome into another edition of Southwest Bias, brought to you by our friends at the Husband and Wife Law Team. If you've had a serious injury, call the Husband and Wife Law Team first at 602-783-8841 or visit their website at thehusbandandwifelawteam.com. And we are live from Studio K. Got the point right. You can see it right there. Brought to you by our friends at Circle K. Make sure to download the Circle K app today and join the inner circle. I spent a lot of time helping my wife set up for a musical that she's in this week. A lot of sets and a lot of things that, from out in the crowd look super fancy. But when you get behind the stage, you realize, it's a bunch of plywood. It's things that are flimsy and going to be moved in and out quickly. It's a set. It's make-believe. That's what college football is right now to me. This weekend kind of made that very clear. Now, the games were good. It's not about the product on the field. I mean, Indiana, Ohio State was a fantastic game Saturday night. It isn't really about the college football playoff system. I think it's better than where we've been. I'm looking forward to it, in fact, because I think there'll be some entertaining games. But there are all sorts of flaws that continue to show up. All sorts of issues that are coming from NIL and the transfer portal and the playoff becoming the end-all be-all and the archaic framework of what the college football postseason used to be crumbling all around it. There were multiple teams that turned down bowl games. And not just 5 and 7 teams. Notre Dame turned down the opportunity to play in a bowl game because they didn't make the college football playoff. Now, that felt like a bit of a tantrum to me. I'm not going to lie. We didn't make it in. We're not going to play. Okay. It seemed petty. Iowa State, Kansas State, they opted out of playing as well. They each got fined $500,000 by the Big 12, and rightfully so. Auburn, UCF, Baylor, Kansas, Rutgers, Temple, they all turned down bowl games. This is a problem. College football used to be based on tradition and pomp and circumstance from that tradition. The bowl season used to be something we all enjoyed because it gave us something to watch during the holidays. Football on wall to wall between the NFL and then college football bowl games. We always had something to watch. But now that system's flawed. No longer is a gift bag and a trip to freaking El Paso, Texas enough to get players excited. In a world where money talks, bowl games don't get it done. In a world where there's now 12 teams that get to fight for the national title, a semi-meaningless game played 4 weeks after your season's ended doesn't mean much of anything to these players and a lot of these universities. And I'd love to blame those teams. And I think, let's be clear, I think U of A and ASU are in the right by going to their bowl games, by taking those extra practices, by doing this and following the current system and being part of it. Is it ideal? No. The transfer window opens January 2nd, which is stupid in and of itself. The NCAA, in all of its infinite wisdom, puts the transfer portal window opening before the championship, before all the bowl games are over, what kid is going to go, you know what, I'm considering transferring, but I really need to play in the Holiday Bowl the same day that window opens, or the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, 3 days before that window opens? You're putting teams and players in no-win situations there. What's the point in that? How can the NCAA not get out of its own way? How can they put teams like ASU and U of A in a situation that may not make sense for their players? Hell, may not make sense for some coaching staffs that take other jobs. The whole system is broken. While the NCAA was attempting to do the right thing, they found a way to make it even worse. I have zero problem with paying players. In fact, it probably should have happened like 50 years ago, that they should have been splitting this money that they're making, because college football is an insanely big business. I have no problem with giving players the same kind of freedom coaches have to leave a university. But the system that was built to do this is asinine. It was not thought out. It was not well planned. It was not built with an infrastructure that can actually handle what they're trying to accomplish. And then they keep an archaic bowl system in place to try to tell you that tradition matters. Well, the business behind it and the mechanisms that go along with it don't support it in any way, shape, or form. There's like one bowl game that matters anymore, and it's because of marketing and insanity, and it's the Pop-Tart Bowl. These guys just want to go there because it's a spectacle and it's fun. It's fun to be a part of. That's what's going on here. And I actually think other bowl games should embrace what's going on with the Pop-Tart Bowl. Like the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl that ASU is going to needs to have 100 gallons of milk that the winning team gets to pour into like a swimming pool that's filled with Frosted Flakes, and they all get to jump in it. They get to swim in giant Frosted Flakes. Or instead, maybe they get to go big game hunting and go after Tony the Tiger in the stadium. Something to make it interesting. Something to make it fun. Something to make it a spectacle. Because if you're going to keep these ridiculous bowl games, there has to be a reason to watch and a reason to participate. And right now, tradition isn't enough for that. Because who really gives a crap about that? The players don't seem to. Ask all those colleges that opted out. Why should the fans care? I think the only solution may be a secondary tournament that involves some of these bowl games, involves these teams that would have made it, that has a giant cash prize at the end. Because money seems to be what talks right now, and rightfully so in a big business like this. So why not make something that actually intrigues some of these players, intrigues a coaching staff? You come play in what essentially is the secondary tournament, and you're going to get to split a pot of $5 or $10 million. You don't think that somebody would watch that? You don't think that, we can keep the names, the Pop-Tart Bowl, the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl, the Weed Whacker 5000 Bowl, the Toilet Fresh Bowl, whatever you want to call it, the Smoke-a Bowl or whatever the Snoop Dogg Bowl is called. Like, keep them in, fine. They're the sites of some of these games in these tournaments. And you have a giant pot of money at the end. Tradition's gone. And honestly, who the hell cares? I don't care about an archaic system. I care about making it make sense for the players, for the teams, for the fans. And with everything built for television, maybe we just need a little bit more intrigue. I applaud the Sun Devils. I applaud the Wildcats for choosing to play in their bowl game because it's part of a system that they are opted into thanks to contractual obligations by their conferences. They also are going to get the benefit of those 3 extra weeks of practice and maybe letting some of those kids that have early entry that were recruits for next year get ingratiated in Kenny's system. They obviously now have to deal with the loss of Sam Levitt, and that's going to help them be able to do that as well as they practice and figure out what life without him will be. But this system is fundamentally broken, and the NCAA does not seem to have any sense how to fix it. And I don't blame any team that's going to opt out or any player that doesn't want to play, because none of this is about them. It's about big business. But maybe that's just my Southwest bias. We welcome in the mustache behind the Mac, a man who I think could be the commissioner of the NCAA in college football, Shane Diefenbach. Shane, how are you?
I don't know about that.
No? I mean, how hard can it be? They obviously haven't put any thought into what's going on.
Yeah. It's a shit show. It's completely broken right now. The college football is completely broken, and we kind of saw this coming when the power was given to the players, and then it became more about money. And once money is involved and the main thing that everyone is looking towards, like this entire country does, then you lose all of the fun and whimsy that's in the sport.
Yeah, but let's be honest. It's always been about money. It was just about who was the money for.
It was. College football was about tradition for hundreds of years.
Shane, with all due respect, give me a break.
No.
There's a reason.
No.
There's a reason why the Fiesta Bowl was the Tostitos Fiesta Bowl and the PlayStation Fiesta Bowl.
That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the players. The players didn't play for money for 150 years.
No,
they played for this. Like that's what they played for. That's what they cared about, and that's why.
In part,
but
yes.
But no, that's what.
Some guys were playing for the ability to have a future and make money.
Yes, but when they were there was no transferring. There was and that's why when the bowls were picked and selected, and this was where you were going, there was never any hesitancy, because it was never about the name on the back. It was always about the name on the front. And you wanted one more game for that. And look, I'm not saying anybody's wrong, because the BCS system was horrible. I hated it. What do you mean there's only one team that can win, and it doesn't even matter if there's a game? Or this team is undefeated, this team's undefeated, and this team's undefeated, but we just got in a room together and voted one team as the champion without them playing. Of course there were flaws. The same thing goes with the players. Of course the players should be able to decide their future. That makes sense. But there was always going to be pushback because of how this whole thing was structured without any structure. How any player can transfer, or you can take money from anything without having some type of limit. And we knew the Wild West was coming, and we were just going so far, and there was going to have to be some overcorrecting. And now I think there is with the one transfer portal window. You're just in a weird world. But it all stems from the same thing, and it's money. And that's what sucks nowadays, because college football used to mean so much more than just who was getting paid right now.
I would argue that it started even before NIL. The second you let coaches leave and hop jobs like crazy and you don't hold them to their contracts, that's when the whole system started to crumble. Because at that point, how is it fair to hold a player to a commitment, expect loyalty to a university, expect anybody to have that pride when the coaches are just giant mercenaries looking to jump for a check? I mean, what Lane Kiffin did was a freaking travesty, a disgusting travesty. I mean, you look down in Tucson and what Jed Fish did to that program after one of their better years ever. All of that, is led to a foundation that started to crumble. And then you add in no regulations, no approach to this that makes any sense. And kids that, they want to act like professionals. They want to take millions of dollars because it's being offered to them, but then can't act with professionalism either. I mean, what Sam Levitt did by not even showing up this weekend to their end of the year banquet there is just, that's not the way you handle it either. Now, I know plenty of adults that can't handle their issues right either. I mean, that's not to say that money automatically makes you mature, but this entire thing is so messed up. And how are you making kids make that decision and on January 2nd?
Yeah.
Your season's not even over.
Again, we've gone far, far, far too far in the other direction, and it's going to go even further. there's a comment in the chat right now about signing players to contracts and holding them accountable. So that this is it's just not college football anymore, and we're getting to a weird point where it's all going to boil up, and there's going to be another oversight committee, and there's going to be a salary cap, which there kind of already is, but it's not really in place. You've lost sight of what college football was about, and I don't know how you fix it at this point.
I think the money. I think the answer is your NIL money goes into a trust, and you get a percentage of it based on how long you stay at a university. Just like a coach is going to only have so much. But honestly, there needs to be new rules on the coaches too. The whole thing is messed up. The entire thing, the entire structure is messed up. I do, like I said, like the college football playoff system though, because it's the thing that fixed the biggest problem with college football. There was a lot of talk about it this weekend, so I said, you know what, I've got to get somebody on the program that's been in the room that knows what goes on, and that's why after the break, I'm going to welcome in Paola Boivin, former college football playoff committee member, so we can kind of understand what the process is like. Got to tell you about the husband and wife law team. If you've had an accident or suffered a serious injury, the lawyer that you get matters, and the research you do is important. I was in a serious accident with my family. There were some injuries. We didn't do our research. We just went with somebody that a friend suggested, and it was one of the worst experiences I've ever went through. 3 years of just annoyance and not getting anything done. That does not happen with the husband and wife law team, because Mark and Alexis Breyer, they know Phoenix and they care about what happens to you. They are trial lawyers and they are specialized in injury accidents and serious injuries that occur in it. And you want to have a lawyer that's ready to take care of your needs. And they focus on that most of all. So if you've had a serious injury, call the husband and wife law team first at 602-783-8841 or visit their website at the husband and wife law team. The link is in our show notes, and tell them PHNX sent you. I got to tell you about Circle K as well. I go there every day. My friends at Circle K take care of me in the morning and when I need gas. And they do it because I'm a member of the Inner Circle. Actually, they do it because they take care of everybody that goes there. But if you are a member of the Inner Circle, they're going to take care of you with discounts on food and gas and everything that is involved at Circle K. When you sign up, it's super easy. You download their app, you put in a little bit of information, and bam, you are part of the Inner Circle. You're going to save 25 cents off your first 5 fill-ups. That's 25 cents off per gallon, and then 3 cents off per gallon after that. Then you're going to hit the mustache behind the Mac level, and you're going to save 5 cents off per gallon, plus great deals on food and other stuff. So join the Inner Circle for free today by downloading the Circle K app. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details and start shopping there today. I do every day. We're going to welcome in our special guest, Paola Boivin. She's a media legend here in town, a former member of the college football playoff committee. Paola, thanks so much for taking the time. I should have had you on this program much earlier than this, but I'm glad we get to talk now.
Yeah, what's the deal, Espo? Why wasn't I on sooner?
My producer didn't want you on the show. So.
That makes sense, yeah.
How have you been? Things going well in your world? I know you're working over at ASU now. That going well?
Yeah, it's been amazing. For all the people who say journalism is dead, the amount of interest in the program and in our sports program and in these amazing students has been awesome. So yeah, it's going great. Thank you.
Most of the people that say journalism are dead are the ones that watch this program and go, how the hell did a guy like that get behind the mic? The college football playoff has obviously been the topic of discussion over the last 18 hours or so. You've been in that room. How does deliberation actually go? And even taking a step back before that, in the weeks leading up to that final decision, what is it like to be a committee member?
It was amazing, and we can jump to this later, but I want to sort of address the doom and gloom you and that producer guy were talking about earlier. It's so how the season starts out is we all get this amazing iPad that I can get any game at any time I want, coaches cut, watch offense, watch defense specifics. So all season leading up to when we started meeting just outside of Dallas, which is in late November, just watching endless games and watching so that when I go into that first meeting, I'm really prepared. And I would fly into Dallas on Sunday, and basically we are sequestered in a hotel outside of Dallas until Tuesday. There would be sometimes a guard outside our door, and we were meeting in a conference room and didn't leave that room very often. And it was just 3 days, 2 days of super healthy debate, crunching numbers, a variety of opinions coming in that room, right? One semester or one season, I had Ronnie Lott to my right and a major college athletic director to my left. So all kinds of different sort of minds are in there. And we start voting pretty quickly, our top 30 in like chunks, top 6, and when we move down in chunks. And then we would start debating, this team versus that team. We'd put 2 teams up on the board looking, an Alabama and a UCF next to each other, something like that, watch them play. And then we discuss a lot of stats. And it's a lot of haggling for a couple days, but I really, really believe in the process.
How do you come to a decision, though? If there's a lot of haggling, there's obviously differences of opinion. How does that eventually come down to the 12 if there are those differences of opinion? And is it simply majority rules in voting for things, or how does that go about?
Yeah, for sure. And when I was on the committee, I was on there for 4 years, starting in 2018. So we were voting for 30 still, but basically our goal was 4 at that point. And it comes down to the voting. But when there are some issues that are so close, we would talk them through, and we would talk them through for hours. And sometimes we were in that room till 2 a.m. debating things. And it was often, and not often, it was always civil. I mean, it was, mature people in the room. There was never an ESPN in our ear, as people would say, or the SEC commissioner in our ear. It was all just discussion and debate. And we were using a variety of tools from the games we would watch to the stats that we would look up, to coaches who'd coached for many years or players who had played for many years, kind of talking about the eye test. All of that stuff would come into play.
Does the old BCS computer kind of sit in the background and just stare at you guys going, I have an opinion too?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's not there. But what has been funny to me is so many people think there's a better way. I have yet to see someone come up with a better way. And the reality is, as much debate that goes on during the course of the season, or the polls or votes, at the end, it's hard to argue that since the CFP era that they've gotten it wrong. When we get to the end, now you may debate what's leading up to the end, but it's usually the 2 best teams on the field at the end. And that's ultimately our charge. It wasn't who was most deserving, who had the most victories. It's who are the best teams. And that's what people forget sometimes.
You bring up the statistics side of it. Did you have a group that you could ask, hey, I need specific statistics? Because I think there's just this assumption that in that room, the committee just brings in whatever knowledge they have in their head, and that's that. And then they have it out.
Yeah, not at all. All of us have computers in front of us with a very sophisticated and extensive amount of systems of statistics, including from a group that we use, that when we were looking for something very specific, more sophisticated than strength of schedule or explosive plays or whatever, they would provide that for us. So there were a ton of statistics at our disposal that the whole group collectively utilized.
Some people go, oh, why are journalists, that have covered the sport on the committee? Now, to me, it would seem like your background in journalism actually would help make for a stronger argument when you're looking at it and you're trying to make a specific case for a team based on, research that you're used to doing and crafting an argument. Did you find as a journalist or former journalist that was beneficial in this whole process?
Yeah, absolutely. So when they put the committee together, they started adding one former journalist was their mentality. And I think that mix of, like I said, former players, former coaches, athletic directors, a journalist, everybody brings something different. And I think collectively, when you have the diversity in any kind of room, that helps. And so I think what the journalists bring are one, and a true understanding of objectivity, right? That's just sort of drummed in our brains my whole career. And also been watching, I covered football for years, starting out with UCLA football in my 20s. And so I've watched so much college football. I'm very much a stat person. So sometimes I would probably bring stats into the equation more than a Ronnie Lott, who would say, look at that linebacker, look at that secondary, how hard they hit on this team. So it was a lot of different types of voices bringing different things in.
I think it's interesting. You said, to circle back a little bit, that you were tasked not to necessarily bring in the team with the best resume, but the best teams into this. What is that mindset? What's kind of the difference when they task you guys with this to determine the best resume versus the best team, and how do you get to that?
Well, I mean, on a very sort of simplistic level, think of a team that's 9-0 versus a team that is 6-3. That 6-3 team is, say, in the SEC, Big 12 versus a very small school. That 9-0 record really isn't reflective of what that team is about. On a much more sort of micro level, it is looking at a team, and some of those tough decisions we had in the past of putting maybe a team with more losses side by side with another team, is then we're going up and putting both, like, video of both teams side by side and watching the speed, how quick they are, how quickly the quarterback gets his passes off, really the minutia and the eye test things I know people hate to talk about, but it's legit. We watch teams side by side and compare them, and that would help us also come to the best team versus the most deserving team.
So essentially, it's almost a mental exercise of, if these two teams had actually faced off in this season, who would have been the better team on the field, to simplify
a little bit of it. I mean, that was only a small part. We didn't discount the victories or the margin of victories or the opponent or the strength of schedule, but that was just one other piece of the equation when we were kind of stuck with this, looking at two teams who should be number 3 versus 4 or 4 versus 5. We would get down to the details like that.
I don't know if you can talk specifics, so if you can't, just let me know, but do you have a memory of what the most difficult decision while you were on the committee was that you guys had to really get into the trenches about?
Yeah, I can't really talk specifics.
Okay,
That was kind of
fine.
sort of what I told them, but I will tell you, it's kind of what I was just talking about. Some of these maybe schools that are not as big programs who are dominating and have these great records, when you put them against an established program with a couple of losses. And those were hard decisions, and we put a lot of thought into it. And I mean, that's kind of what it comes down to when you're doing that side by side comparison. You sort of look at the talent level on both sides.
You're obviously somebody that cares deeply about college football and college athletics. We talked about early in the program here how the system seems to be flawed at this point, trying to figure it out. What's your view in college athletics in a whole, and in particular football right now?
Well, first, I don't quite share the doom and gloom that you were expressing earlier. I mean, I think if you look, people said, for example, this is the NIL and the way we're doing things now would kill competitive balance. I would argue that it's as interesting as ever right now. I look at the 12 teams that are in the playoff. I'm more excited than ever to see how this whole storyline plays out. So I think there's that part of it. People thought, we're going to start seeing a decrease in fan interest. The ratings have been great. So I think in a lot of ways, college football is actually in great shape, much better than people think. The NIL thing is tricky, and I understand that. And I think a lot of times when you're in a transitional period of anything, whether it's college football, it's going to be really clunky. And I think that's where we are right now. But, you have to have, the reality is you have to let these people and companies and athletes experience free enterprise. And so I don't think the NIL is going away. I am certainly open to discussion about putting some type of cap, because I mean, the one thing that's suffering right now is the fan loyalty and the player loyalty aspect of it. And that's kind of the thing that made college football so great. So I think there has to be more discussion about NIL. But I think overall the sport is really healthy. I was sad to see some teams pulling out of bowls, because I still think, and I will argue till the end of days with the fact that I think bowl games should stick around. Maybe there's a lot of them, maybe there's too many of them, but I think, one, they bring in a lot of revenue, and that revenue is shared among teams within the conference. So I think there's value there. I think there's a lot of schools that will never maybe get to the CFP, but the bowl game is kind of a great, place for fans to celebrate their teams, go to cities that they haven't been. So I was, it was hard to see some of the teams pull out this year more than usual, but I'm still a believer in the bowl games. I think the one thing that needs to be addressed is maybe the NIL aspect, but it's not going away. I think there just has to be some kind of, I don't know if it's a cap or discussions about how to manage it better.
I'm going to pitch an idea to you, and I want your honest feedback on it. ASU going to the Tony the Tiger Sun Bowl. Mm-hmm. The Pop-Tart Bowl has become such a big deal. I am proposing that the people at Kellogg's, I believe that's who makes Frosted Flakes, has a giant, 100-gallon swimming pool that they get. The winner gets to pour 100 gallons of milk on a bunch of Frosted Flakes and go swimming in them after the win. Would you want to see Kenny Dillingham and crew jump in a giant swimming pool of Frosted Flakes?
In a heartbeat. I would love that. I think there's a place in college football, and it's with the bowl games, where you can be a little bit gimmicky, as they do with minor league baseball, with some of the things that they do. I think the bowl games is a perfect place. So bring on the milk, bring on the cornflakes. I would love it.
All right. You heard that the former college football playoff committee member is supporting my crazy bowl game idea. Paula, I want to have you back. I would love to talk about your career and all the interesting things that you've done. If in the future you'd be open to that.
I love it. I always like talking to you, Espo. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula. That is another edition of Southwest Bias in the books. Thank you for joining us today. Big thanks to our guest, Paola Boivin, for giving us some unbelievable insight into the college football playoff committee. A big thanks to the mustache behind the Mac, who helped set up that interview and who ran everything today, doing triple duty, 2 ASU shows and our program. You can follow him at Shane Deef. You can follow the program at PHNX_sports. You can follow me at Espo. And remember, I'll supply the milk if you supply the Frosted Flakes. Ahoy, hoy.
We all silly like the mayor.